Hello, welcome to Kathy's Horse, part 1. So Kathy sent me some pictures of what's going on with her horse and asked me to do an evaluation for her. So we're doing that right now. And it's a nice contrast to Christy's horse, which we just looked at. So you guys are going to be able to see quite a bit of difference between these two horses' feet. And lots of stuff that we've been talking about on the tact group. So let's get into it. First of all, this foot is, as you can see, maybe you can't see. Let's discuss it. Now, I will tell you something. I took some pictures of my horse's feet last year that looked like this from the side view, so sometimes this is a little deceiving. Depending on how you put your camera, it can make this part of the capsule look teeny tiny and make it look like you have a big ledge sticking out here. But in person, the foot doesn't really look like that. So I will give you some leeway on that because I'm only seeing one exact angle here. And I did that with my horse like a couple days apart. I took pictures and one day looked like this and the next, couple days later, it looked completely different in the back. So, just kind of take that with a grain of salt. But let's just see what's going on here. So, okay, do you think this is the size that the capsule should be? Or do you think it is smaller or larger than it should be? All right, I'll give you guys all a minute to take your votes. Put your votes, write them down on secret ballot. All right, well, this foot is not the size it should be, and it is missing the back underneath here of the capsule. It should be growing back to about here and up and lifting this up. And it's, very short and slanty right here. So we need to start being able to grow buttress all the way down from about here and then over to there. So yeah, missing quite a bit of the capsule. So let's get that fixed. And you can see how these lines are really long here. Why are they long? Because the foot is slanted. Because it's been left too long before and the back's too short, or, well, depends on, probably was left too short. But if you leave the front too long, it'll start to get like this and it'll get twisted around. My mare used to have this problem right here, like you have here. So I fixed it by finally taking enough off right here in the toe quarters. And I will show you where that's happening on your horse too. So your horizontal lines come down like this, and they're supposed to go kind of around the foot, but instead they kind of come down. So they're supposed to be more like around the foot and around the foot and around the foot there. And so you can see that's because this is collapsed and fallen forward. It pushes these, it would push these forward as well, which would make them end in the wrong spot. If you drew your grid on a perfect grid on a horse's foot with an anatomically correct foot, and then you start screwing up the back of the foot and leaving this too long, this is going to fall forward, and then these lines are going to start to get longer, and when they get longer, it's going to take these lines with it and pull them down. So that's a distortion happening in this foot. And I don't know how it started because I don't know the complete who did what, when, where to the foot, but I can tell you right now what's going on. So let's fix it and get it back where it should be. So I can see a little bulge right in here, and I see that these lines are ending here, and there's a bulge right here, and we know these are too slanty because, okay, look at these lines go like this, and then suddenly they start slanting down, don't they? And so mysteriously, a weird correlation, kind of in the pillars quarters area or toe quarters area, bam, the lines are meeting together. Oh, what a surprise. You know how that happens? This falls forward and collapses and pushes these to as far forward as they can get, basically. And so they slam into the ones that are like, hey, we're trying to be straight here. We're trying to grow a hoof. And they're like, we have no place to be. We gotta smush in somewhere. Make room for me. And bam, everything just meets up right in here. So I would recommend that you watch my string mapping video, where I fixed this problem that I was having myself, because I could never figure out how much I should take off here, because I was afraid, because my horse is really bound up and I didn't want to bind her up more. So I didn't know if I should be taking off, a lot right in here. And I was a little gray on what to do right here. So what I did is I marked the heel with a little Sharpie at the line where I need my heel to be at from underneath the foot. But I kind of went over the lines over to here so you can see it when the foot's down. And then I marked my toe quarters measurement, which is 2 inches over from center. So that'd be right about here. And I marked that line from here down to here, where it's at 2 3/4 inches, so that I know that's where I'm going to file to. So I put my dot there. Then I took a string and I went from here straight back to my heel, where my heel is marked. So here to there, I went straight across with a piece of baling twine, which is really hard to do with one hand, but you can do it. So I could take pictures, or I could take a Sharpie with my other hand and color in everything below the line. And that's everything that I would take off. On this horse, you would probably be right about here, back to about there, and you'd probably be taking off like this whole thing under here. And then what you do is you just blend it back in with the toe. So you just blend everything around the whole foot. But if you consistently do that, that will make a humongous difference with your lines right here. And if you want to figure out how to do a little arch right in here, you can do that as well, which will give even more leeway for these laminae to back up and stand up, because they'll be off the ground even more. So that would be really helpful. Let's look at your next picture. That's a heel picture. It's kind of shadowy, so I can't see as much, but I see this sticking out right here. More than likely, that is going to be tissue that you can cut out of there, because it's probably blocking the entryway here into the area of the frog where you can allow the inner anatomy to come up. And so I would probably be trimming that out more than likely. If I could see a little better, but that's probably going to be being trimmed out of there. And you don't want your bulbs down on the ground, right? We want them nice and above the ground, and we want nice straight buttresses coming down back here. This is kind of shadowy, so I can't see, but I'm seeing that you're got like a false back to the foot, which many people do. So you don't have your proper frog anatomy here going on, more than likely, because this heel is pulled down and under into the internal foot. So like, see that one there? These bulbs are almost on the ground down there, right? Pretty low back there. Those buttresses are pretty little nubbins. So once you help your foot to stand up in the back, you're going to start to get a nice heel. You can't ever get a heel if it's continually collapsing and the horse is walking on the side of their heel. Okay, I don't know what foot this is, because this does not look like the foot I was just looking at from the side view. Let's discuss this curve going on with the laminae. As far as laminitis goes, I don't personally see any evidence of that so far, but I'm not an expert on laminitis. I do not know if other signs of laminitis are present that I'm not seeing. I just don't really, I kind of just do tact and focus on the positive with the horses I'm doing, and they come out of their pain whatever's ailing them, if it is like laminitis, I still just do the tack trim, and the tack trim brings them out of it. So I just focus on getting the foot to become anatomically correct. And during that process, there's things you have to do. If you want to get it better, even if it does have laminitis, if you want to get it better, you got to do tacked. It's always tacked. The answer is always the tack trim, and it's always the same trim. Okay, let's discuss this now. These lines. What does this mean? When these lines go up like this on the sides, what does that mean? That means that the foot is too long right here and it's jamming up. We call that jamming up. It's very common for the pillars or the toe quarters to jam up. So that's what's happening over here. And what did we just say? We just said on this picture, if this is the same foot or not, I don't know. But it doesn't look like it from the side view to me, like there's the same foot. But right here is the yeah, because these don't go up on the side here, so it must be a different foot. But anyway, if you look at the foot from a different view, the one that we're going to go look at in a second again on the other frame, you'll probably see below here some telltale signs of them being left too long and the jamming happening. So now it's jammed up over here on this side. What do? You know what? I usually don't worry about that either. I go down the center of the foot. You know, you can use your protractor from underneath and find your true center of the foot. And you mark that little dot, then you come over here, right? And you map it 3 inches from hairline to tip of toe, or 3.5 to the ground. I'm always on uneven ground or, you know, stupid footing underneath the rubber. So I can't really trust my to the ground measurements. So I started just doing hairline to tip of the toe, 3 inches, for pretty much, I've got 4 different horses I do right now, and they all have completely different feet, and it works on all of them. So you have to take it, depending on how large your horse is or how small your horse is, you'll have to take that into consideration to your own horse. But Linda's mapping measurement is hairline to ground 3.5 inches and hairline to tip of toe roughly 3 inches. So I measure that out, then I go over 2 inches from there, and then I measure from the hairline down, and I want that to be 2 3/4 inches from there to the tip of the foot. And I mark that spot with a Sharpie, and then I blend around, and sometimes I color below that line with my Sharpie so that I know where to file. And those lines will come right down. If you stay on top of this area of the foot, those lines will come right down, and they will relax and get straight. And they go up and down really easily. You can have them jammed up 1 week. If you fix this, you can have that jamming come down and straighten down in a week. And so that's what that's all about. Looks like it's a little uneven here. Don't know, but it is jammed higher on this side. And look what's happening with your hairline. Your hairline's higher over here. So bingo, that means you need to take more off right here. Next view. Okay, so I've got another solar view we can look at as well. See those little flaps right there? I would take those out. I think those were the ones we were seeing from the bottom view a second ago. Good job on your bars. You're doing good on those. I think I'd take a look at that again, carefully in person and see if I could carve a little bit more off of that or not, because you don't want these to be cavernous flaps that hold the sole hostage. So you might be able to migrate that down a little bit lower. I'm not sure, but it looks like you might have, because there's a little shadow line right there. She might still be above the sole a little bit. Those bars are buggers. You might think you have them all perfect and then take a picture and you're like, dang, I got more to take off my bars. Very common. But if this is the same foot, when this foot was on the ground, where were those lines that were higher? They were right here, weren't they? They were right there. And what's there? A hoof separation. So what does that tell you? That tells you this has been being left too long. Or it's been needing to be trimmed and it hasn't been gotten trimmed. It might not be too long right after you trim it, but it grew fast or it grew down and then it was left for a while before you trimmed it again. So the hoof wall separated because it has no place to go. When it gets to a certain length, it just starts to peel away from the sole, from the tension and the pressure. Hold on, I'm gonna let my kitty cat out because he's throwing. Okay, so this correlates exactly with where those lines were jammed up more, and it's separated there, and this foot is stretched forward and it's got a lot of front to the foot. You'll see in some other pictures that are coming up. It correlates with the fact that there's a lot of foot around the front in this picture, right? There's a lot of foot around the front right here. That correlates with this right here. There's a lot of foot between the frog and the edge of the foot here. There's a lot of sole area going on here in this foot. So what this tells me is that it's been being left too long all around here for a while, because it's someone's trimming style that trimmed this horse's foot out and took off the heels too much and left too much around the front. And this is happening rapidly everywhere right now. I see it everywhere. Okay, this right here is locked up. We need to open this up so that you can have the inner anatomy that is had nowhere to go but inside and underneath the frog. It's literally gets smushed inside the foot because the capsule gets trimmed over time, smaller and smaller and smaller, because somebody was consistently trimming the heels around this horse before you started doing his feet. I think it's a gelding. So we have to give it a place to come back out. Otherwise, it will never come out again, because the horse's foot naturally creates a thick callus of skin to hold their foot together. Otherwise, when they're walking, the innards would just pop out because there's no capsule for it to be in. So it has to put it down somewhere. It's like, where can this go? Oh my God, I have no place to be. They're making my shoe too small for my foot. Where am I going to put my foot? So it gets smushed down inside the inner foot, and then this grows over it to hold everything together because there's nothing here to support the foot. The capsule's missing. So we have to open this up, and this was Linda's hugest discovery ever in her whole life, that we can actually allow what's been smushed down inside the foot to actually come back out. It's crazy to think that outside anatomy is smushed down in underneath the frog. But that's what's happening with these feet. It's absolutely insane. So this foot has a lot of thick periopal growing here as well. So what I do when I have a foot that I want to be able to be free to move and grow further back and grow more buttress coming out of the capsule and grow a bigger capsule, I will trim this right here to allow this to be more free so that it can grow a nice piece of capsule to come up right here and start thickening this capsule wall here, or making it longer, coming back more, growing back from under here. And as this unfurls and comes out, the part of the anatomy that grows a buttress will be here, so you can grow a bigger buttress. Right now, it's smushed down inside the foot, so you're not going to get anything more to grow right here until this splits apart and can be more expansive right in here. So I have been trimming this out with my knife right into here, right into here. So I slice that, and then I'll kind of go make a little V down and back up where you can kind of feel where it's a piece of flap. You can feel that when you start digging around with your knife. You'll know this is like extra flap, and you'll start to feel when you get to the true frog underneath there where you got to stop. If you go too far, you'll get blood. So you have to be careful. You don't just go slicing and dicing. You gotta, start conservatively, slice another slice, but you can plainly see this right here could stand to come out. And then this thick is real up high and thick, and that's because it's trying to hold the foot together. So you've got to kind of take some of that out right there and see what's going on there. Looks like you took a little bit out there. And I've seen people, okay, if this were my horse's foot, I would try this. I saw somebody on the tact group take a small, I think they had a small rasp in order to do it. I'm not sure. I think they had a miniature rasp. Not an Evo rasp, but like a real rasp, like a flat rasp, but it's only like 6 inches long. And they actually just thinned it down with a file right here. They thinned this skin down, and bam, these heels spread right apart. It was amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to do that to my mare. And before I had a chance to do it, she passed away. So I couldn't finish. So I would love to see what happens on this horse if you did that. Sole depth and all that stuff in here, I'm not an expert on that, but you can see where it starts to dip down right here and get a little thinner in the back here. And we want this to fill up to the level of the top of the buttress. So we want to grow nice thick soles right in this area. And when the foot's not anatomically correct, it gets thin right in here. It's not as thick as it should be. So you'll see over time, that'll start to fill in and level out and not be as hollowed out. Next picture. Okay, once again, hairline down. Looks like a David Launderville, however you say his last name, foot, doesn't it? And I can see you're gonna be really happy that you got to find tact for this horse, because this horse is gonna start feeling better really soon. As soon as you start restoring the back of the foot. Still, you know, kind of everything I just said, but you know, it's a real triangular shaped hoof, right? So when you don't see a buttress coming down and then going forward, you know somebody chopped out the heels on this horse. So once you start getting that to grow, you're going to have a whole different thing happening with your pony there. Okay, see, what are we seeing here? Absence of the back of the foot, lines coming together on the sides, a leverage point right there, which is why the foot split right there. So when you file, you're going to want to file that off. And I know you're going to need to take a little bit more off right in here, because that's why this has been happening here. You get this bulge happening right here in the foot. All that is a result of the foot having so much leverage on it from this collapsing and moving forward that it actually bulged out right here. And the inner foot is also bulging right there. So it can be extremely painful for the horse. So we're going to start getting that fixed as soon as we can right here. And I would string map your heel to, as long as you do it right now, I'd have to see what you've got for heels. I don't know if you have a 2-inch heel, but it's just laying over sideways and it ends about here, or what you got going there. I'd have to go back and look. It looked like you had short little nubbins for heel buttresses, but now it looks like you have a super long heel that's fallen forward. So I'd have to talk to you about that. But wherever you decide you're going to file your heel buttress at this trim, based on your analysis, when you do your initial mapping, you're going to put a dot with your Sharpie, and then you're going to go over here, you're going to find your center from underneath the foot with your protractor. You're going to mark your dot for your front of your toe, where you're going to measure that toe to. Then you're going to go over 2 inches, and you're going to measure from hairline down, and you're going to want this to be 2 3/4 inches. And I'm assuming this is a regular-ish size horse, and those measurements should work for this foot. You know, it's your own horse. You have to decide what's best for your horse, but that would be the guideline. So you're going to mark a dot there, which is probably going to be right about here. You know what always happens? Wherever you see the foot have a leverage spot, like you see right there, guess why it's leveraging? You know why? Because it's too long. It's doing natural trimming. Its foot is naturally flipping so that it can try to be how short it's supposed to be. It's crazy. I just did up my friend's calling me up with her DSLD horse I'm doing, and she's like, it's all chipping off. And I get there to do his feet, and all the chips were chipped right to my mapping marks around the front of the foot. And I'm like, well, that wasn't any big deal because everything that chipped was just naturally trimming him right to where he's supposed to be. So it's probably going to be right about there, and you're probably going to end up, see how you started right there, but then there's a bunch right here. So I know people are like, oh, I don't want to trim the heels out. Oh, I'm worried about trimming out the heels. Well, you got to learn to know if your heels are running forward or if they're being left way too short. And with this foot, we have stuff happening here that needs to be able to stand up. These lines are so far forward. That means that your foot is being pulled down and under and also being left too long right in here, which is why it can't move back. To get the foot to move back, meaning this part of the lines to stand up more upright and not be so forward, we want these lines to end up here and end up here instead of end up way here. We want this line to end up about here when it's done. So it'll go from about here to about here. On this one, would go from here to about here instead of way over here. That's what we call moving back. As this moves back and this fold gets out of here, that is going to make a huge difference. So you got to get rid of the spots that are stopping that from coming back. And I'm identifying right in here as a trouble spot. And that's also on the front view where the lines were jamming up, right? So I think you got to, you'd probably benefit greatly from my, that video where I showed you how to string map the side of the foot. Okay, front view, what do we have? We got jamming going on here, and a little jamming going on here. And we got quite a bit of foot right there, quite a bit of foot right there. I think you take some more off right in here. This looks like a big bell, and it can happen from the weird camera views, but in my opinion, I think you're leaving way too much right in here. Right in there. And guess what? That's exactly where that last picture was just folding to, right? And I was thinking you were going to take this much off, right? So you probably are. Once you map it that way, you probably are. And you can bevel around the front of the wall just like you have a nice bevel going on here. And that'll start to really, and then these are going to come down really fast. As soon as you do this under here, these are going to collapse down and you're going to need to trim again real shortly. You know, like a week later, you're going to need to trim again for a little while until this hoof can straighten out. So you can take off leverage, boom, comes right down. Take off leverage again, boom, more comes right down. Okay, now back here, let's look at this line. Very interesting. The line's like this, and it goes down. It's supposed to go around the foot, not arch up and go down. When that happens, that is typical of too much foot being left in the front. And what's happening is the foot's being pulled off the leg. There's too much foot in front. When the horse walks, it has leverage on the toe, which causes the capsule to slip down and forward, or slip out and forward, as if you're walking around in Daffy Duck shoes. If you had big, long clown shoes that have a big, long front on them, and you're walking around with clown shoes on, that's what's going to happen to your shoe. You're going to have a lot of leverage on your toe. You can't take a regular step because there's so much shoe out in front of you with clown shoes on. You have to walk funny, and you can feel that leverage right in front of your toe when you try to walk, and you can't bend your foot right. That's what's happening to horses' feet all around the globe right now. They're having too much left right up in this area up in here. And so what happens is this has gotten slipped down and forward. When it slips down and forward, the lines end too short. This line's supposed to wrap around the back of the foot, but it got pushed down and forward, which pushes this line out of its place. So instead of being straight, it got pushed down to where it is now. And it got pulled down, more than likely, from somebody leaving too much toe and too much pillars or toe quarters. Okay? And that's what you need to fix on your horse. Okay. I'm not as versed on the back pictures. I need to take more of my own horse's back pictures. I think every horse looks like they're collapsing in the back when they stand, you know, like even with 2-inch heels. I'm like, oh my God, they look so short from the back view all the time. So I'm not as quick and good on this angle, but we know that from other pictures of this horse that it's probably pretty down there. So we want these bulbs to be standing up and be proud and be off the ground. And right now, they're probably pretty close to the ground. And see how everything kind of falls down into here, looks like. And we want these to be nice and firm and up. We probably want this, instead of this sagging down like this, we probably want it to be about like this. The hairline to be about like this on this horse, instead of way down where it is now. And of course, we would slice that out right there and open that up so they can go, boom, apart. When they can go apart, they can stand up again better. And once again, I would recommend to try to get a flat heel buttress going right here. So you want a file of nice flat top, a little bit off here so you can match the height of this. If this is shorter than 2 inches, that would be your heel height. So you're going to flatten that off with your rasp, and you're probably going to take off something in this area to match with that. You don't want this higher than this, because what that's going to do is that's going to cause leverage, and it's going to keep pulling the foot down and forward. So you want to make a nice flat top on both of your heels. And then, I don't know what that is right there, as far as missing some over here goes or what, but you're going to want to try to take out as much. I see you took out some right in here. I'm not sure. I'd have to see it in person if you're going to slice a little bit more out down in there. I kind of just do it with my knife, and I've got to pay closer attention to exactly what I'm taking out. And also right in here, you've got your thicker periopal skin there, so I would carve that back a little bit there, and I would probably carve around the base of that a little bit there. And then this, check to see how much of that you can take off. If it's old sole, you can usually peel it back from under the apex. If you start right under your apex, you can usually peel quite a bit back with a hoof knife pretty quickly, but it looks like you're doing a pretty good job of exfoliating your sole. I do not see any compacted sole on this horse. So good for you with soles and bars. You've just got to understand what's been pulled down and under, and make sure that you're taking enough off here and here so that you can start having those laminae come back. This is a picture I was going to show you where you can really see that you've probably got a lot happening around here that's a little too much foot, which is why you have a big separation going on here, and it looks like it's pretty stretched out. So you got a little bit of a duck shoe going on with this horse, I think. And you've got the dark shading there too, because things are getting pulled forward and you're having leverage happen here, which wants to pull this hoof wall away from the sole. So you've got in separation and discoloration. So you just gotta get this in check, up in here. And then trim that apex back, as you've got a little bit of a stretched forward apex going on there as well. And look, if you can, trim more off here. Looks like you're leaving some dead frog right in here. And if you can get some of that to come off, that can really start to make a big difference on everything else going on. The bars, I'd have to see them in a little bit more in person, but maybe you could take a little bit more off right here. But overall, you are doing a really good job keeping your bars in check. To map the bars, Linda has a new way to map it where she does a crisscross X thing, and I don't know what that one is. I haven't learned that one because I don't have a problem with seeing where my bar should go. I know I can go from my apex to the top of my buttress, and that's where my bars need to be. So I don't know. I've got to check her new bar mapping thing out and see what's going on with that. But This one could probably come back a little bit more to here, so you could probably carve a little bit out and guide it back. Since you have the issue with your heels being all forward and your lamini being forward and all this being, you know, missing part of the back of the foot and everything else, you're going to want to continually guide these bars back, back, because then you can have, feel like you can have, help that buttress grow a nicer, true buttress rather than having a false buttress, because your bar is attaching to the hoof wall quite a bit further up from the back of your buttress here. So you want to guide that down so it's maybe attaching more in the end. If your buttress is here, your bar should be quite a bit further down. So you might want to check and see if this is flat going on right in here. Because, or maybe this is coming up and that's the top of your buttress. Wherever the top of your buttress is, you want to make your nice flat top. I find once I make my flat top, then I can see where to trim my seat of the corn back to. You'll find after you file here that you've got more to bring back than you think on these two sides of your bars. Okay, dokie, Smokey. And of course, you got to keep this trimmed enough. Otherwise, you'll keep having this separation. But if you start trimming that down, so you're going to file across with your rasp and bring it down to the level of the sole. And then if this is still too long and I don't want to take any more sole off, I'll bevel from this side of the wall to bring it down a little bit more and bring it in and down. So once you do that consistently, you won't have that separation anymore all the way around the foot. Okay, I think that's your last picture. Let me just double check and see if there's another group or not. Well, you are good. That is it for this hoof chat for you, girlfriend. Go forth and trim. Enjoy.